Mabuhay, Kamustika. Welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. I was just looking at my list here of potential topics. I actually have quite a few. I've got about 266 at last count. And excuse me, the one I think I'm going to do today is going to be about wanting a virgin when, let's say, you've been a player, are a player, former player, and thinking about settling down, and so you think it's best to marry someone who has not been a player, someone who is a virgin. So I want to kind of talk about that. I certainly want this topic to be something where people will contribute to. I should turn this light off here. There we go. Um, and I want to know what you had to think about this. This is a safe place to talk about all kinds of things, I guess, until YouTube decides it's not. So I want to tell you about players wanting virgins. I hear that from time to time, and part of me almost thinks I can understand the logic that might be there, and part of me does not understand that at all. And so my hope tonight is that people will get this notification and join me for this topic, and let me know what they think. There is anonymity here for most people, and I hope it's an interesting topic for you. So I know some people kind of get in here late, 6 o'clock Central Time, where I am in the middle of the United States in Nebraska. So I did a live stream recently at 5 p.m. Central Time, and it went pretty good. And not as good when I did one at 6 p.m. But on the 5 p.m. one, people seem to be jumping in towards the end of that one near 6 o'clock. So I decided to start one at 6 o'clock. And even the YouTube statistics say that for me to do a live stream 6 p.m. Central Time is a good time to do that. So what I'm going to do, you see a link there. It was covered up on my side of things by these notifications. I want to check and see if I can see comments here on the phone. That way, I think I will go read my notes that I have for this. And if people show up late, I may just have to go back to the start and go over some of this, because I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So in order to help get an answer, I want to ask a lot of questions. Of course, I have my own opinions on this, and I want other people to chime in with their opinions. So a link I have right up the top is a website designed by Mr. E. It's called lvbts.com for short, so you can remember that, lvbts.com. And I've got here on YouTube, I think around 715 videos. Thank you for the thumbs up out there. And got about 715 videos over the last 3 years. Some of them, are out of the ordinary, like when I do a video on love dolls, on virtual mates, or even the topic of submission from a wife to a husband. And I do that because a lot of men say they want a Filipina because they hear they're so submissive. And so we should talk about that. And I did in that live stream and podcasts to talk about how that works. And I do believe every wife should be submissive to every husband. That's in one of my playlists if you want to look for that. But Casting on the Sea podcast, if you click on that link, you can listen to, I think there's about maybe 96 or 97 podcasts up there. Um, Bruce Thompson, thank you for joining me. All you guys have to do is sit back and maybe drink your favorite beverage. I've got coffee right here, and I've got apple cider vinegar with water over there. So it's been an absolutely beautiful day. I wish I could do this outside. The sun's going down now, but it's been here in Nebraska. We're hitting low 60s. We're going to hit 70s here pretty soon. Um, my wife and I are going to go out to a park just to get away, different place to sleep, see some nature, and that'll be coming up. So the weather is starting to change, and I'm starting to feel alive. And well, so Bruce, tough topic. Yeah, I think it is a tough topic. And since you said that, um, lose weight, Bruce. It does. Now, I have been using the raw apple cider vinegar with cold bottled water. I think it tastes terrible in tap water, even cold tap water. So I use cold bottled water, pour it in the glass, and I used to pour in like a tablespoon or two. Now I just pour in some. And yes, it does help. Although, Bruce, I'm not sure if that same effect is there when you dilute it in water. I don't know. I've never studied it. I am very conscious, but it may be that you have to consume the apple cider vinegar raw for that kind of benefit for weight loss. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not quite ready to do that. Isa doesn't like it when I drink the apple cider vinegar and water because she doesn't like the taste. So Daniel Pastor, thank you for joining me today. Some of you I probably will have never met. This topic may attract some people um, that are new to Love Beyond the Sea. Mostly, Love Beyond the Sea is about helping men find a wife overseas. Just encouragement to find a wife. If you don't know, I was alone for like 30 years, and I know that's very embarrassing. And in fact, if you're alone for 30 years, you might even be tempted to become a player. And then what? Are you going to say, well, you know what? Now that I've sowed my wild oats, I'm going to marry a virgin? Well, I want to get into that. Seriously, I'm a very serious person. I'm not doing this lightly. It's an important topic to me because I think people are getting, I think, a little uh, too picky, too picky. And it may depend on a lot of factors. I know one of them is your age, but putting on your checklist um, must have a virgin. I'm going to try to explain why I think that's maybe not a good thing to put on your list. Now I got to check this comment. Okay. Michael V. Now I don't want to. I did release your comment, and I appreciate your comment. Appreciate everybody being here. Um, I do want to. I want to come off as being gracious towards people because, as you'll see, no one is perfect, and I hope I can make my case well. It says here, Michael says, because men have to work at getting laid, women do not have to. Um, that's why it's different. And I suppose that depends on the man, and that depends on the woman. I chuckle because it reminds me of a time in the gym a long time ago. I had this guy say, uh, "We're just changing." You know, he was on one side of the locker room, I was on the other side. Older man. He said something like, "Oh, I bet you get laid all the time," or something like that. And you know, I didn't say, "No, sir. Actually, it's been like 20 years or something at that time." I didn't say that, but some men have a hard time, and it's getting even more difficult. I understand. I believe in the West, it is getting more frustrating and challenging to just get a decent date, girlfriend, somebody you can marry. And I am very sympathetic to that. I thought it was bad back in uh, 2015 when I got married, and I thought people were thinking, "Well, man, you're what back then? 53, 2015. Why are you even trying to get married at all? As if I didn't get lonely or have a sex drive or something." Um, yeah, Michael, that's probably true in many cases. No question about it. Bruce says hard in COVID dating. People with hearing family are starving constantly. Hard in COVID dating. People with hearing family are starving constantly. And I must admit, Bruce, I'll need some clarification there because I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at there. Um, yeah, Michael says global sexual market harder to find women who haven't been influenced by the liberal West. That's what I read. People are saying, even in the Philippines, where I found my wife, that the I hesitate to use the word that starts with F and ends with N because I sometimes wonder if I've said some things and people aren't commenting on my videos. I hardly get any comments anymore, so I want to be careful with what I say. But it is harder, getting harder, and Western philosophy is getting over to places like the Philippines. And but I don't think I think there's a good window still for men, middle-aged, older men, and younger men to still go to the Philippines. I'm a big believer in younger men trying to escape the West if they feel like many do that it's just really almost a wasteland for finding good potential wives in the West to look to a place like the Philippines. So Bruce says they cannot work COVID rules. Um, well, today, I've been reading even recently about men, and I don't know if it's an overreaction that they've been hurt, disappointed, rejected in the past, and so they want to make it right with a virgin that may or may not work out well, um, or maybe it's an overreaction to their past. So what I want to do now, I can see comments here on my phone, which is good. I appreciate everybody being here. I've got some notes prepared. I want to dive into this. Just please understand the spirit here. I just want to talk about an issue. I hope people will talk about. I have my beliefs, and I just want to share them here on my YouTube channel for as long as I can. So let me dig in here, and please continue to make comments. I do appreciate that. Yeah, Michael, if these days, if a woman says her body count is under 4, she may as well be a virgin. Well, I'm talking about here somebody that's really a woman who has never had sexual relations with a man. And you can still find that in some other places around the world, like the Philippines, but other people will say just the opposite. Well, your mileage may vary. Um, and I'm going to try to explain why I don't think you really have to make that a must have. I hear this from time to time. A man who's had sex with multiple women in his life, and that's many of us, now wants to settle down, which is good. It's a good thing. However, a big priority he has, almost an insistence, is to marry a virgin. Is this not a double standard? I posed that question. Is that a double standard? How do you feel about that? He is allowed to have fun with any woman he wants, but The right woman for him should avoid men until he is ready to marry her. Love Beyond the Sea, where you are now, is the channel for Fil-West higher education. I go into issues that you're going to come across when you are married. So if you're not married, you can watch these videos, the podcasts on Casting Beyond the Sea, and hear somebody talk about these things that you probably, like tonight, aren't really privy to a lot. But this is this channel for Fil-West higher education, and I want to help make marriage great again. Love is my business. Business is good. But when I see men wanting a virgin when they have been a player, something seems wrong with that. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and I want you to contribute your answers. Give me your response. If you want to even share experiences. This is not an everyday YouTube live stream topic, but I prefer to deal with what I consider important matters if you have seen my videos. Sometimes I think many people aren't always interested in that sort of thing. Maybe sometimes I hit too close to home. I am really not trying to offend anyone. You have permission to talk about this sort of thing here today. Tonight's live stream is about the idea of a non virgin man insisting on a virgin woman to marry. Since it is normal for some to catch the live stream at the end, again, I might kind of go back and redo this because I hate it when people say, "Hey, I just got here. What did I miss?" And we'll see. You can always watch this. It'll be on YouTube as a regular upload. So we'll see. It'll be up there, but I do them live, and I might start doing more live just so I can have more interaction with you. So at the moment, I'm not in a hurry. I do want to watch a basketball game later tonight, and I think it would make an interesting live stream and a video upload afterwards. So first question here, why do men think so highly of virgins? With the comment we had earlier, it would seem that virgins or virginity is rare. It's rare in, I think, both men and women at some point in time. Michael V says, any wave of that word that starts with M and ends like with N is bad. I agree. I do. So why do men think so highly of virgins? I mean, if I think back at one point, growing up, virginity was kind of mocked and ridiculed. Then later, it has become so highly prized, like gold at the end of a rainbow. I suppose somebody could value virginity because it shows self-restraint, and it does. Sometimes I think people get the idea that it's only men that have sex drives, and so it's almost excusable for him to, have sex outside of marriage, while the women somehow, I guess, are almost asexual creatures, and they just think about it every once in a while, or for 1 week, a month, or something. But I don't think that's true. It does show self-restraint. At least it can. How about good morals? Does virginity show good morals? I think it can. I'm going to relay a interesting phone call I had with somebody's wife later, where her reluctance to have intercourse with her husband was not really because of good morals. Could it be that this fella doesn't want to fail with an experienced woman? He's he doesn't want to look bad, and I know we all have big egos, and that whether it's sports or in the bedroom, you do need some confidence. Michael V says, let me see if it works here on the phone. Because we as we men know, even the ugliest woman can have sex with a guy should she choose. So a woman who waits till marriage engagement is seen as special. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. Waits till marriage engagement is seen special. It is. It is special, Michael. I agree with you. I also want to point out that it's very difficult. Why would a man with proven questionable character, and yes, I guess I'm lumping in here, sleeping with women, that's another video topic, I suppose, outside of marriage is being questionable. And I say that because I believe, as I said umpteen times, that I believe marriage is the place for sex. I think sex is great. Without a sex drive, I wouldn't have been driven to last as long as I did, not wanting to give up, trying to find a wife. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I think it's difficult to find anything much more wonderful than you know the sexual expression with a woman in marriage, because outside of marriage you can run into all kinds of trouble that can last a lifetime and can damage you for a lifetime. And I'll make that point more later, but I think it is proof questionable character to just be you, because I think it's using women outside of marriage, but then insist on a woman, have to have, demand, insist on a woman who has been holding back. He can certainly learn from his past. I certainly hope we do that. I know I have. He is able to stop fornicating, but it is very, very difficult. In fact, if he has enjoyed it, abstinence might be a brutal experience. Now, also, if he has had regretful experiences, and that happens too, and it shouldn't be, because ideally he wouldn't be involved with somebody until they were married. But if he has regretful experiences, he might be jaded for life. He might never be able to, I guess, be what he could have been, or experience what he could have experienced. Coffee's good even when it's cold. Now I see some comments here, so I want to continue with this. I may not get all of them, depending on how how frequently they roll through, but I don't want anybody to feel that I'm ignoring them either. What problem, Daniel Pastor? The problem in the Western world is the third wave. That term again. My ex, a Western woman, cured me about having a relationship with a Western woman. My Panay is my treasure. Daniel, I say the same thing. My Panay, that's a woman from the Philippines, a Filipina, is the greatest blessing to me. I mean, other than God himself, this little woman who is a sinner, just like I am, is, I've got her pictures up here. That's what I'm looking at. She is my little woman. She changed my life in a moment. That's one of our wedding songs, and I agree with you there, Daniel. I really do. We are all human. Virginity could be important for some people. That's a big topic. It is. It is a big topic, Daniel. Now, I don't think I've done a video or a live stream or a podcast on virginity per se. So I will say some things, because, I wish I could have hundreds of men who are virgins, any age, watch this in time or tonight. Because I think virginity is a good thing, and I think it can be difficult to want to talk about it, because you may think, I'm doing the right thing, I'm saving myself, I don't want to get in any regretful experiences. I don't want to get somebody pregnant. I don't want to get jaded or used to certain things. Um, it's a big topic. Virginity on one side of the coin, and consequences of not, or consequences of losing your virginity, and then become a player, going the other direction. Um, it's a big topic. You think to yourself, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing, and I'm praying for a wife. Why won't God give me one? And you feel ridiculed by some people. You may even go to a spiritual advisor or a church, and they might, I don't know, they might say, well, you must have the gift of singleness. That's why you're a virgin, and that's why you haven't put a bullet in your head yet, because you can obviously live without sex. So therefore, you're 40, 45, 50 years old. You don't need a wife. And I haven't heard, I have not been told that, but I have heard a friend of mine at one point said that. That was a long time ago. I think he was told, and I don't remember exactly by whom, but he was told, well, you're 40 years old. I don't think you need a wife. But I'll tell you what, I was 53 and I didn't give up. And I'm glad I didn't, because now I don't even remember those years. I'm 59 now. We've been married 5 years, 9 months. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I said, you know what? I'm throwing caution to the wind within reason and going 9,800 miles away to marry a woman in the Philippines. It wasn't something I had on my mind. That's why I talk about young men looking for love overseas, because if it's getting bad, and you're, I don't know, 25, 30 years old is still young, you don't wait till you're 40 and 50, and then there's a total moral breakdown and collapse of morals here in the West. Um, think about overseas. You can watch my videos here on Love Beyond the Sea. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea. You can look at the playlist called Just Us. I think I've got about 180 videos in there. I try to show my wife and I once in a while. She kind of doesn't like being the star or center of attention. That's why she's not here on live streams anymore. But once in a while, I feel like it just does the channel good to say, I'm married. I'm not just some guy talking. I actually did get married, and you can see us there together. So being a virgin, you got to believe in your right mind. I'm doing the right thing, and I'm going to find somebody someday. God did not intend for people to just stay single and just go crazy. The Bible calls that burning, when it says it is better to marry than to burn, which means to be aflame with sexual passion. Michael V says, I think it's also in a case by case circumstance, like if a woman was in an LTR, long term relationship, and the guy just up and left her cheated, it's different from women hooking up at a club. Well, there may be different variations of that, Michael, but the bottom line is all it takes is one time. And then all of a sudden you've experienced either the greatest thing you've ever experienced, or it didn't go well, and now you may never want to have it again. It really is all about the context. It's just too easy to get involved with sex outside of marriage. I mean, there is a thing called sex addicts. There's Sexual Addicts Anonymous out there. And like any addiction, I'm sure nobody said, you know what, I'm going to become addicted and ruin my life by this. It just, like any addiction, the things we get addicted to often come with pleasure. And with the pleasure comes a temptation. And then, you can start getting your brain wired for this pleasure, a pleasure that's not really yours, doesn't really belong to you, but for the time being, you're engaging in it for a reason. But that can really come crashing down when you do get married, if you've had all these experiences. Then you marry a virgin, and then you find out, oh, what have I done? I got a lot of baggage now. I've done some damage, and so kind of gets into the pornography issue. It's not good. It's not harmless entertainment. It does affect, how your brain operates. Yeah, culture does that, Michael V. We shouldn't ridicule a guy over virginity. Daniel says, I was ridiculed when I was a virgin, when I was young, even had an inferiority complex about it, honestly. Well, yeah, I agree. Um, I agree. And it shouldn't be that way because, I could draw a hard line here and says biblically, that's the expectation. No sex until you're married. Bible says, rejoice with the wife of your youth. Proverbs 5. If you look up, jot down Proverbs 5, around verse 18, it says, it talks about avoiding what would be a prostitute, essentially, and getting married, rejoicing with the wife of your youth. It says, let her breasts satisfy thee at all times, and be thou always ravished, which is intoxicated, with her love making. Now, that's in the Bible. That's in Proverbs 5. It shouldn't surprise you because God, after all, designed human beings. He designed the way the brains work, the way the body works, the way the mind works. And as far as being a virgin, that's the way we come into the world. And sometimes I think we grow up saying, I can't wait to get rid of this, as if being a virgin is some big wart on the end of our nose. It's just how we come into the world. And, God wants people to get their fill of wonderful sex. And the only place it's going to be wonderful is going to be married. And that's why I, if I could, I would get everybody married like 16, 17 years old so they can enjoy it longer. Probably not legal everywhere, but wherever it's legal, as soon as you're old enough to get married and get going and raise a family. So, because being a virgin is nothing wrong with that. Some people actually, looking at these comments, can actually do that. Michael says, like, people will insult the guy saying, you just need to get laid. Again, just getting laid makes sense. It can do you some temporary good, and then it can kill you in the long run. It can damage your potential relationship with a wife in the future, getting laid. Because getting laid is a selfish term. Making love is what you do when you're married. When you're married, in fact, the Bible also says in that wonderful 1 Corinthians 7 chapter, which does talk about virginity too, it says, do not deprive one another. We don't know what the questions were that are being addressed in 1 Corinthians 7 by the Apostle Paul under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, but we know his answers. And, he says, do not deprive one another except by prayer. Some manuscripts add fasting, but it's, I think, commonly believed that is incorrect, and it should just be by prayer. So, in other words, unless there's some outstanding reason not to be having sex in marriage, some extreme necessity, urgent necessity to pray for would be the only one. Otherwise, you should do it for the sake of the other person. Because it says the husband's body, what is this? I'm not going to look it up here, but the wife's body does not belong to her, but the husband's body belongs to his wife. That's a paraphrase. Your bodies belong to each other. Sex is for the other person. That's what I tell my wife. I want a Christian marriage. And I try to tell her, when you're married, you may not want to have sex sometimes. Usually neither one wants to have sex if they just had a spat. But there are many times when, depending on how complicated your life is, you don't always want to at the same time. You may want to all week, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm tired. I don't feel good, or something happened at work. I'm really upset. And then you just don't want to. And you're kind of thinking about yourself, and your wife wants it. And part of being married, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, is learning to adapt to each other, learn about each other. And when it comes to sex and that type of relating to each other, um, I think God recognizes how important it is to not say no. You should not say no when you're married, and you should not say yes if you aren't married. In other words, you stay a virgin. So you say, well, Bob, doesn't that mean you better get married young? I would say so. That's when the sex drive is the most insistent and urgent. Yes, I know, your brain isn't supposedly fully developed till you're 25, but so what? God says to avoid fornication, any kind of fornication. That fornication is sexual sin. Um, 1 Corinthians 7 says, it's good for a man not to touch a woman. That means not having intercourse with. Good. It's not bad. It's not evil. Nothing wrong with it. It's good. Nothing wrong with it. Shouldn't be vilified, denigrated. However, there's the realistic side. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband, because women have sex drives too. Daniel says, me too, I believe in God and in the Holy Bible. And, Daniel, that's, in my opinion, and many others, that's the only place you're going to get straight answers. You're not going to find it in, government and politics and schools, but you will find it in the Bible. And the amazing thing is, you cannot cancel culture of the Word of God. What it says is what it's always said, and it can't be altered. Even the Bible itself says no one is to add or take away from the words of the prophets in this book. Revelation 22:18. Once it was completed, that's it. There's no more additional truth. That's it. In a book that may be only this thick, it's got all the wisdom, more than enough depth of wisdom and understanding that could last a person for, multiple lifetimes. And that's why I can say these things that I do here and not try to be mean spirited, but just say, this is truth. Truth is hard to find these days. I would sure hate to make big decisions in my life and be guessing or listening to the wrong people. Michael V. Also, the primary and really only purpose of sex is for procreation. People often forget that. Well, Michael, I want to, I want to, I want to say something that you would probably be happy to hear. And again, this is my opinion, that procreation is one of the reasons for sexual intimacy. One of the reasons is to avoid fornication. That's a big reason. It's got nothing to do with procreation. 1 Corinthians 7:1, you can turn there yourself. It's good for a man not to touch a woman. That's intercourse. Nevertheless, even so, to avoid that, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. And then Hebrews 13:4 says, some translate it, the marriage bed is undefiled. Others might say it is to remain undefiled. But either way, the marriage bed is undefiled. In other words, God, I think, gives people who are married carte blanche. Whatever you want to do, whatever turns you on, go for it. It's nobody else's business. Whatever you want to do, if you're married, there is no shame when you're married. There are no bad consequences, shouldn't be any emotional consequences if something doesn't go right. And things often don't go right when you're in a situation like that for many reasons. It's okay because you're there to express your commitment to this other person. And it's a wonderful thing. It's absolutely wonderful to know that even if you don't have sex for a few days, maybe your wife's having a period, or something else, that's okay because you're going to have it eventually. But when you're single and there's nobody to choose from, and maybe you haven't thought about going to the Philippines yet for a wife to help increase your chances, boy, it's tough because you think like it's never going to end. I've been there. But sex is for procreation. Yes, indeed. Be fruitful and multiply. But it's also for pleasure. There are couples that can't get pregnant. They can't. My wife and I, unable to get pregnant. And so what am I supposed to do? Say, well, sorry, hon. I guess that's it. Nice knowing you, but we can't have sex now that I'm infertile or something. And there are couples that they're in their 20s or 25, 30, and they can't, no matter how hard they try, they just can't procreate. And that's because God himself has closed the womb. I did a live stream on something, what would I call it? Should older men have children with younger wives? And of course, there's another controversial topic. I have a playlist, by the way, called The Controversial Something. You'll have to check it out in the playlist on Love Beyond the Sea. Can't remember what I called it exactly, but topics like this, will be in there because it's a little out of the norm. And I think that's good. I think we need to talk about that, and we need to listen to people say things that maybe we don't hear all the time. But sex definitely is for pleasure. Enjoy it. Why? You're not supposed to have it outside of marriage. Never. Don't go there. You even have to watch your thoughts because actions are preceded by thoughts. Thoughts are often driven by desires and needs and so on. So I think it would be kind of weird for God to say, don't you go there, no sex outside of marriage, no matter how your hormones are raging. Then get married and say, well, sorry, Charlie, looks like you're not able to have children, so no sex. No, we are to rejoice with the wife of our youth. Song of Solomon is a book in the Old Testament about the romantic relationship between a man and a woman. Proverbs 5, read Proverbs 5, read 1 Corinthians 7. Sex is so important. It's healthy. Yeah, okay, Michael, talking about most a majority of couples. Also, what's sad is the couples who can't get pregnant are often, yes, good godly people, and those who have kids, like rabbits, are sometimes young, immature. I always think about that, as far as why do things happen certain ways, Michael V. In fact, before I came on here with this live stream, I got a notification like the ones that just have to keep clicking away. It was talking about abuse by some parent. And, you say, well, why would God even allow that person to get pregnant or to get married or to live? Well, he does. And God doesn't answer to me, and we have free will. And it's important to make the right choices with that free will. So definitely, sex is for pleasure, and I can't think of a better one. It's a wonderful thing. So back to my notes here. If virginity, and I appreciate all these comments, and please like this video, this live stream if you are so inclined. If virginity is so highly sought after by men who aren't virgins themselves, then is there something outstanding about him that kind of overlooks his notch count? I mean, again, I get back to this double standard. And I'm just throwing these thoughts out there. I'm not trying to drop the hammer on anybody because I'm not perfect either. But it just seems odd. I've been playing the field, satisfying myself, but then I want a virgin who I apparently think very highly of to think highly of me. Well, I don't know. It could be problematic. Um, is it a virtue in a woman to be a virgin and a virtue in a man not to be a virgin? To be clear, I think virginity is commanded by God before getting married. Anything else is something that is going to come with consequences, whether you realize them or not. The thing about it is there is no second best way. There's no alternative way to do it. There is God's way, and there is the wrong way. We should choose God's way. The best way to live is not have sex with any woman other than your wife, just her and not until her. If that's your belief tonight, I agree with that. I endorse that. So does your creator. And for those who realize that playing the field is a road to nowhere, even though they haven't been perfect, I think they need to come to terms with that. Keep looking for a wife. Now, if you're going to sit around single until you're in your mid-20s or 30s, then probably remaining a virgin is going to be unrealistic. Ideally, I think you would be married by then. Daniel says it's a blessing to be able to have children. I think it's also a blessing to not be able to have children. In that video or live stream I did, and I probably made an upload shorter version of that. God determines whether he's going to allow it or not. He tells us to be fruitful and multiply, but he, in no uncertain terms, also says in many places, God closes the womb. That means he doesn't allow it to be opened. Or after there has been birth, he closes it. Or he just doesn't open it. Or he does open it. That's my wife and I have had to leave that in God's hands and in his wisdom. And once you've done all you can, that's all you can do. You have to move on. I think there are times when God causes or causes, whichever you want, miscarriages in certain situations because it was a wrong situation and he doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want to bring a child in the world. And again, as we talked about earlier, there are times children are allowed to be brought in the world and you kind of wonder why. But generally, the rule is to get married and have children, which if you get married young is a lot easier because you got more sperm and she's more fertile, the eggs are healthier, and it's generally something that happens. But when people are getting married later and later, it's probably natural to see a decline in childbirth. But the Bible does say children, this is, I want to say 138 or 139, happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. It's talking about a man having many children. And I always recited that to myself because, I was thinking, well, maybe I don't want to have children. Or maybe I'm afraid to have children. Maybe they're too expensive. And God's word was have children. They are a blessing. I have to draw a line somewhere. I don't like being willy-nilly. I think the Bible is clear in 1 Corinthians 7 that to avoid fornication, sexual sin, you must get married. Otherwise you're going to sin. Unless you don't get sexually tempted, in which case you would not need to marry. And certainly shouldn't marry someone who needs sex, which again is most people. Reminds me of Matthew 19. Matthew 19. The apostles were talking to Jesus, I think, about something he had said, and they said, if he was talking about divorce and the limitations on allowance for divorce, and they said, Lord, if that's the case between a man and woman, um, I don't know what they said. It's not good to marry, or why get married? Um, and Jesus didn't get into that because not all men need to get married. But he did say there's three types of people who don't need to marry. One is eunuchs made by man, let's say inability to have children, procreate, have intercourse due to war, for example. Those who are born eunuchs, and those who are able to make themselves a eunuch for the kingdom of heaven's sake. So living a life like that is not common. It's not wrong. No one should make fun of that. It's just not common. Getting back to the issue of players wanting virgins, why do they want to have sex with women who are experienced but want to marry a virgin? His sexual experiences are not a benefit to his future wife. I hope you believe me when I say that. I hope I didn't just ruin anyone's day. His sexual experiences before marriage are not a benefit to his future wife. Doesn't mean he can't get married. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's going to have to clear some things out of his cash, and that's going to take some time. He needs to train himself to please just that one woman, which is a lot easier to do when there hasn't been anyone else. So, another question, do they not care about the ones they are sleeping with? Players. Are they going to somehow just stop not caring and seamlessly start caring about the woman they marry? Do they think that somehow by going from a player's lifestyle to settling down with a virgin that somehow that changes who they are or what they've done in the past? Do they want to have their cake and eat it too? Again, the thing I'm really trying to focus on here is this attitude or mindset that I can play the field, but then, okay, now I did some things wrong, but I got to have a virgin only. I just think that's unrealistic. Here at Love Beyond the Sea, I want people to get married. I don't want them to have excuses not to get married. And I think saying I got to have a virgin, like if you're 40 years old, that's going to be pretty tough to find. You might be thinking, why do I even care? I get the impression it's just being real picky. It's so easy to fall into sexual temptation, even when you weren't even necessarily looking for it. So a woman who falls to temptation doesn't mean she's a whore or a whore in the making. Women need it as much as a man, and some women want it more than some men, especially if she is younger. Women need sex too. If a man is currently playing the field, when does he expect to stop playing the field? I'm not sure there will ever be a time that feels right. It's kind of like I'll quit smoking Monday. Yeah, next Monday. Well, maybe next month. Well, maybe next year. Well, maybe next decade. He's already been spoiled by the greatness of the gift of sex. But before it's time, if someone watching now or later is a virgin, then hold out. But get your butt looking for a wife too. How much of a second virginity is he going, to need? How long before he just can't stand it anymore? And then what? He may become a MGTOW monk? He's going to go back to playing the field? Will he consider it necessary to shut it down for a few years? And sometimes that may be necessary. You've been a player, you shut it down because you realize you've gone the wrong path. and you're hurting yourself, you're hurting your others. You don't want to do that anymore. And so you stop and you consider everything that's happened to you. And maybe you start getting some good advice. I always had a mentor when I was younger, and I still have one today. Um, Before, I needed somebody to talk to about being single and frustrated and all that. Now that I'm being married, I need a mentor to help me with marriage. And there are times when I try to pass those on to you here at Love Beyond the Sea. I've spent some time on Philippines related message boards, and I get the impression players and even men who have been married before are also looking for this wonderful virgin girl who must be head and shoulders above all the non virgins. Are the men thinking that somehow they can right the wrongs of their past with this young girl? I would understand that thinking. I just don't think it would work that way. Do they somehow think they deserve her? Um, Daniel, I wish I had a mentor when I was younger. Well, I know, but you know what, Daniel, I, for whatever reason, don't find it difficult to talk about things like this. I think that's why I was looking for mentors when I was younger and often not finding them. And today it's almost like if you're a Christian, it's almost like, oh, you're how old? Just get your mind out of the gutter. Just go to the gym and exercise. That'll take care of that sex drive. No, it won't. Just go out there and start serving and serving and serving. That will help you get rid of that sexual tension. I don't think it will. What will is the knowledge that the drought is over, and you can have intercourse, and that's just a normal way to live. At least it used to be, and at least it's supposed to be. And that's why I talk about that here on Love Beyond the Sea. Having a mentor who can sit down and talk to you and listen to you is a wonderful thing, but they're not easy to find. But it is helpful to go out and ask somebody, hey, look, I'm struggling with something. Do you know anybody, let's say in church, for example, um, that has a reputation for wanting to talk about these things or being a good listener or offering good advice non-judgmentally? Um, that can be hard to find, and it's a good thing to look for. There were a few times I mean I cussed enough to make a sailor blush because I was so utterly frustrated being single. And that's either going to make somebody think you're nuts or they're going to get the idea that you are really frustrated. Before I found my wife in 2015, in a whirlwind 54-day relationship, it took us 54 days to get married from the other side of the world. I went to marry her when I went to meet her for the first time. But before that, just a few weeks before I met her, I remember being in my apartment when I'm in a house now that I'm married. But um, I told my pastor, I said, "This is wrong. This is no way to live." And I was crying. I said, "This is just no way to live. I mean, I know what I should be doing. I just can't do it. I just can't find anybody." And he didn't say, "Well, okay, good news, Bob. Now you can call off the dogs and you can just be single the rest of your life. Obviously, you have the gift of singleness. Everything should be fine." No, he didn't say that. He agreed with me. He agreed with me. He had been this man trying to help me to find a wife. And he kept looking. And he was the one that actually came up with the idea of looking overseas. He didn't know much about it. He just knew that, well, okay, this is an option. You decide if you think it's something you want to do, which I did. And so I'm very grateful for Pastor Scott. Pastor Scott is in one of my videos on YouTube. I'm not sure what I called it, but Pastor Scott is probably in the title. and I just interviewed him there for a while. One day I thought that would make a good video with the man that helped encourage me still to don't give up. And now I don't have to bother him all the time with my needs, my frustration. So yeah, mentors are great. And I do try to help. I'm not a mentor per se here, and you can take my advice and leave it. You can take my experience and leave it, but I do care. I mean, I'm not doing this. I don't have 20,000 subscribers, and although I'd like more subscribers and views and all of that, and I don't have to do this. I have mine. I have my wife, and I need to, do what I can to be a good husband to her. But I can't forget what it was like all those years, many years. And I want to help guys, young ones, middle-aged, old, find somebody. My success came in the Philippines. Yours can come anywhere, but don't rule out overseas. So if these guys valued the woman's virginity and her youth, wouldn't it make more sense to stay out of her way and let her get it from a young man who will marry her and give it to her like a young woman wants? I've seen this. The man desires a Filipina virgin, but what if she's 30 now, 35, 40, still a virgin? Does that lessen her appeal? I have to keep shifting around here. I have a bad back, and eventually I get a little lightheaded, I think, just from my spine. Don't even want to think about it here. But you could wait for a virgin or be miserable the rest of your life. We only have so much time. That's why I talk so much about redeeming the time. And it goes by so fast. Like I say, every day is Thursday. Every day is Friday. Every day is Saturday, and I'm washing clothes. That's just how it goes, very fast. I consider sexual temptation to be the strongest kind, and the older a woman is past her teenage years and into college, the likelihood she may give into temptation is very great. We are to rejoice with the wife of our youth. I believe having regular sexual activity should be part of a normal life, and normal part of a man and woman's life, as long as it's between them only and they are married. That's because I think that's the only time you can really say that you are committed. Each day that goes by and you have not initiated workable plans to find a wife, virgin or not, your experience here on earth is coming to a close. Why waste another day not moving towards finding a wife? Why put on unnecessary restraints that will only make it impossible? Sometimes when I see a man making the statement that he must have a virgin, I ask myself, is he intentionally trying to avoid getting married? Virginity is a great thing and a high bar and the right thing to do. It is not something to be disposed of as much as something to be cherished very highly until marriage. Then the Bible says God's intention is to do whatever the two of you want to do with your bodies, without being degrading, of course. I mean, just a caveat. You're allowed to do whatever the two of you want to do. You can't be forcing something that she's very uncomfortable with, okay, or it hurts or painful or whatever. If a man or woman are divorced, do they still prefer a virgin? I don't know. Again, on the one hand, sexual experience seems to be the order of the day. Then again, it switches to wanting a virgin. If two have been widowed, they both have experience of the most intimate kind. But there's some protection here. It came in the right context, marriage, where God commanded it. So there's going to be no consequences from that. This because it was honored by God. None of the sex people have outside of marriage does them any good at all. It's just a temporary, fleeting, transitory thing, pleasure. All of the sex they have in marriage is good for him if he's a guy, good for her. Well, for both of them, the man and the woman, they get married. It's good. It's just good for both of them. And good for them if done with the right attitude to please each other. Isn't it nice to be able to know, hey, I got somebody that wants to please me? That's pretty powerful right there. Has anyone wondered why a woman might be a virgin at 20, 25, 30 or more? I mean, do guys say, well, I really want a virgin? That's great. And then, hold on here. Why is she a virgin? Does that, people ever say, well, I don't understand. Is there something wrong with her? Maybe if she is still a virgin at that age. How many factors might be involved with this? Do men say they just want a virgin, or do they get picky about why she is a virgin? I want to add that there are many things at play in a marriage besides her past sexual experience. Could it be entitlement to insist on a virgin to marry when you are not a virgin? Could it be a sense of entitlement? It does seem hypocritical to me. Preference is one thing, but insistence is something else, especially considering the circumstances. What would make a man who isn't a virgin think he deserves a virgin? Can the virgin woman insist on finding a virgin husband? If the roles are reversed. Is it is it like a guy who likes to get drunk regularly, insisting on marrying a woman who never drinks? Teetotaler? If anyone is ever entitled to a virgin, I suppose it'd be another virgin, and they are marrying each other. Could it be perhaps a lack of grace? He can forgive himself, but not a woman who is not a virgin. Again, that's the double standard I see sometimes, or I wonder about. Jesus commanded the harlot to go and sin no more. If she was able to do that, can she possibly change and become a good wife to someone? Well, there's this prevailing thought today, no, that's impossible. But I do think with God, all things are possible. And if whether you're a man or a woman and have screwed up with a lot of sexual relationships outside of marriage, that type of cleansing can be done by God, by the Holy Spirit. He does it all the time to people that want to be cleansed and want to be set on a right path. I could ask, if the man has had many sexual relationships but is not repentant, can he be a good husband? This man who's looking for a virgin. When you're married, you're going to deal with each other's sin on a regular basis of various kinds. I don't agree or believe when people say, oh, we've been married for so many years and we never argue about anything. We always get along so great. I just, I don't buy that. I think maybe somebody's afraid to bring things up. My wife and I have conflict. I mean, when you're getting to know each other early on, you're bound to have conflict, and then you'll make mistakes, and then you'll learn how you should handle that situation. And a lot of my videos are about how to handle situations in marriage, because almost all the time I've known that woman, we've been married. We only dated for, if you call it dating, less than 8 weeks before we got married. So you will need to be forgiving. Your spouse won't be the person you thought they were. Don't be afraid. Your spouse won't be the person you thought they are. Because when you get married, you're going to start learning about each other. Are you a virgin? If you are, I hope this video or later upload will be encouraging to you. Do you know what a virgin's attitude towards sex would be? There is a reason he or she has chosen to be inactive until marriage, or maybe in some cases it wasn't a choice. Do you assume she is saving herself for a man, or is there something sinister involved? Here's a quick story, I hope, of a time I was talking to a man. This was in a men's group, actually. And well, he was bothered by something. So I remember lying in bed one night. I called him and we were talking, and I knew it was going to be a long conversation. So I was lying down, and he revealed to me that he had not had intercourse with his wife, and he had been married a year. This was a long time ago. So me saying, "Oh, that's terrible. Is she there? Do you think she would talk to me? I'd like to talk to her." And I wanted to know why she would do that, because it was frustrating him quite a bit, of course. And what I found out from her was, yes, she was a virgin until she got married to this man, but she thought sex was dirty. She thought you shouldn't do it, or you, I guess, have to do it, but it's still dirty. Therefore, it's wrong. Therefore, she was uncomfortable to do it. But that's a terrible, terrible idea. Sex is not, it's not dirty. It's commanded in marriage, even if you can't, you know, even if you're infertile. You have responsibility to each other. She thought, because her mother had told her this, that sex was dirty, she had resisted having sex with her husband, who was in great danger of, seeking pornography. That's what he said. And so I cared about him, and so I asked him one night, and he let me talk to his wife, and I have no idea what happened after that, but it's just an interesting anecdote here. So if you are a virgin, how old are you? And Daniel, thank you for joining me here tonight. I do appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Well, hope you enjoyed this live stream. But if you are a virgin, how old are you? If you are young, then I think desiring a virgin is a good thing. But again, just cautioning you to remain realistic. I think anything over 22 is probably hard to find. And obviously, the fewer men involved with, I think the better. I think it is best if both are virgins. You can't always have that. Absolutely the best, because then they can learn about the wonderful activity of sex together in their married life, because all they have to please is each other. And if they're the same age and younger, great, just wonderful. You know, that's just the right way to go about it. I don't see the good or the value in living life totally frustrated death because you're not having, intercourse. It's just, there's so much good about intercourse, and this isn't necessarily a live stream about being a virgin or intercourse, but there's just fascinating topics, or marriage. So many needs are to be met in that environment, that institution. That's why God invented it and made the very first man married within a day. They were both created on day 6, Adam was, and then Eve was created, and then all things were good, and it was, then God rested on the 7th day. That was his plan from the beginning: get married. So that's just the best way to go about it. Many of us, though, we either have to settle for something other than that, or just not get married, and I just don't think that's a good thing to do. So better to get married. Young women have sex drives too, and they live among men with strong sex drives. If men are trying to sweet talk them into their bedroom, those young women are under a lot of temptation. What we needed, or what she needed, was to find someone to marry her before being active. Today, people aren't marrying as fast as they should, so finding a virgin is getting less likely every day. As you may know, I didn't get married until I was 53. I hadn't had a girlfriend in 30 years. I don't think the thought, to marrying a virgin ever even crossed my mind, to be honest with you. And, I hadn't been having sex, but I didn't think, oh, wow, I'm going to marry a virgin. I mean, you can tell yourself, well, that'd be nice. But have you ever asked yourself why that would be nice? And if you're not, problems you might run into, you're going to have to, if you've been active, you're going to have to ask for God's forgiveness and God's grace, and to overcome that. And it can be overcome. So you can be a good husband, even in the bedroom. It's just best to get married young, stay with that one person. Then you never have to compare yourself, or she doesn't have to compare you to anybody, and you don't have to compare her to, thousands of other thoughts and images in your mind. If you're willing to marry a woman who is not a virgin, are there questions you should plan on asking her about her sexual past? Would a virgin woman trust a non-virgin man as a possible husband? Looking at it from her perspective, and perhaps from that of her parents if she's younger, She might have a problem trusting him. Her parents might too. Does a virgin man lack confidence if he refuses to marry a woman who is not a virgin? Maybe he feels like he can't afford to fail with her. That's part of the beauty of discovery. You will screw up sometimes, but marriage is your safe place. How it is handled is what matters. What if he finds a woman who is a virgin and they have nothing in common? Does he pass? Does he marry her because she is a virgin they have nothing in common with? I would hope there would be more to it than just he wants to have a virgin, as if that's the miracle cure or something. Would he be worried that she might not be normal if she was a virgin? Was there something wrong with her? Perhaps her family is very protective and is going to have a lot of questions to ask the man. Are you able to stand in front of her parents or her family if they want to grill you about your sexual past? Focus on the future as we wrap it up here and how the woman perceives and understands matters presently. If you want to, talk about something, leave some comments. Now is the time to do that before we close. Neither one of you is perfect. Both of you are running out of time. We all are. Find someone. You can only have an imperfect sinner to marry like yourself, like all of us. Don't make excuses either. Many of us have found wives overseas. GWYW stands for go where you're wanted. God's way is for a man to marry a woman before he is tempted sexually, have children, stay together until one of them dies. Ideally, there is no failure, no sexual failure with sexual temptation. No unwanted pregnancies, no poor experiences that make you question your ability or if sex is a good thing. God's way is that the husband and wife get used to each other in a way where they both learn everything they can about each other sexually without being compared to someone else. We aren't supposed to have to worry about being compared to someone else who is more experienced. Doesn't mean they're better, just or skilled or caring. They're just more experienced, which may not be good at all. Being more experienced is not a good thing. Having no experience is the proper way to go into marriage if you still can. If someone here watching this is a virgin, great. In your case, I think it would be best to look for a virgin if you possibly can, but hopefully you're not too old because that makes it more problematic because the older a woman is, more likely that she has had sex before. I think if you are a virgin wanting a virgin, I hope you find one and I hope you get married and rattle the paint off the walls. Ask God to work on you and ask God to work on her. It's a marathon. Showing and receiving grace is a good thing. Whatever our pasts, I started over with my love beyond the sea. So just check in here back in the comments. I hope somebody is still here. Thank you for the thumbs up. I really appreciate that. I wanted to talk about this tonight, because, I just thought it would be an interesting topic, and I appreciate everybody that was here. New people here tonight, which is always great to see. And hopefully, if you like this live stream, let somebody else know about it. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea. I got married. I'm happy. I have to deal with issues that I want you to know about so you can get married and be realistic about the life that you're getting into. Too many people not married today, long protracted singleness, I think is a bad thing. I don't know what could be good about it. I mean, especially when I say long and protracted, I'm talking 30, 35, 40 years old and no hope in sight. So if there are no further comments, I'm going to have a little more time before that basketball game to get this video loaded. And I appreciate everybody's comments here. I really do. I hope to see you again. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea. Until the next live stream or the next upload, this is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Good night and hope to see you again soon. Thank you for joining me here tonight.